Jacob, let's talk about the upcoming Missouri state legislative session. Maybe start with, are we looking at a lot of bills being filed, and what's the overall climate at the state capitol so far?
So far, pre-filing opened on December 1, and since the 1st of December, we've seen over 1,100 bills filed between the Missouri House and the Missouri Senate, which is quite a few. I'd still imagine that before we actually get started in early January, that number of bills will probably be about doubled by the time it's all said and done with over 2,000 bills. But, that's pretty typical to expect this time of year. I would say that I am really optimistic as far as the climate for this upcoming legislative session. We've got a lot of new elected officials coming in after this big election year, and a lot of people want to hit the ground running and get a lot accomplished in their first year in office. So I do expect we're going to see a more productive session than we did last year. At least we can all hope.
Well, let's look ahead to what's going on. Give me some priorities. When you look at the priority list, what's sitting at the top for Missouri corn growers?
So Missouri corn growers, we've got a couple different priorities that we're going to be working on this next year. The first one I've talked about before, it's called the Water Preservation Act. And essentially what we're doing is trying to be proactive and not reactive in the water rights space. As we look towards western states, a lot of them have to pre-allocate their water rights because there's such shortfalls for water resources right now. We don't want to see those same issues occurring in Missouri where there's these significant water shortages, especially for agricultural purposes, whether it be irrigation or even just for your livestock. And when we look at Missouri, we're what's called a true riparian water rights state, where if you have access to the water, you can put it to what's called a beneficial use. However, pretty much all of our neighboring states don't have that same true riparian water rights access. And so in other parts of the country, as we see water diversion projects being proposed, as states want to export water from one state to another, we recognize that Missouri is incredibly vulnerable in this space. And so the Water Preservation Act would be putting kind of a process on the books to help Missourians protect their water rights. And so we want to make sure that our water stays here in Missouri. Going down the line, we've got a couple other priorities we're going to be working on as well. Another one is revisions to the beginning farmer tax deduction program. This is a program that was passed a couple of years ago by Representative Dane Deal that aims to try and make beginning farmers more competitive in land sale negotiations. But it also works for sharecropping negotiations as well as leasing negotiations, to where if you're a beginning farmer, the person who enters an agreement with you can actually get a tax deduction on their income liability for that sale with you if you're a qualified beginning farmer or a family member. And so it's honestly a very good deal if you're a beginning farmer to help you out. But what we've recognized is that in the past, this program is only open to individuals. We'd also like to open it up to where multi-member LLCs or trusts could also utilize this program as well with beginning farmers.
Big priority to get young farmers into the business as our nation's farmers are getting older.
Absolutely. And that's something we've been doing for a couple of years at Missouri Corn, trying to identify what are the obstacles to getting into agriculture today, because we know there's quite a few out there, and what are some real solutions that we can identify to these problems and try and fix them, whether it be at the legislative level, whether it be developing markets, or just educational resources out there.
Any other priorities we should talk about, or should we talk about how growers can be part of the process?
Yeah, I'll highlight one more priority here. We've worked in the property rights space for many years now, and so we're supporting two different bills that are out there to try and prohibit eminent domain authority from wind and solar companies. Although we don't see this issue a lot at this moment, a lot of these companies are entering voluntary lease agreements with farmers. We want to make sure that just because they have the right to eminent domain authority doesn't mean they're actually going to use it later on down the road as these operations look to expand or put in additional transmission lines. That's why we're also going to be supporting those legislative asks this year as well. And as far as if you're an interested Missouri Corn Grower member would like to be involved in these processes, each year in January, we have a legislative day through the Missouri Corn Growers Association where our members get to come down to the Capitol and be advocates for our different agricultural issues. This year it's on January 29th, and you can visit our website or reach out to our office to RSVP for that. And I'd just like to add that time and time again, when I hear from legislators, they don't always just remember me. A lot of times they remember the interactions they have with our farmers. And I've actually had legislators reach out if our farmers haven't been able to visit their offices in the past, that they're seeking out those opportunities to engage with farmers. So please, if you're able to, come join us on January 29th for our legislative day.
I've heard comments in my 30-year media career that, oh, it doesn't really make much difference when you go talk to these people, but it really does, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, I'm lucky that I get to be there most days of the week during session, but I'm a pretty familiar face to a lot of these legislators. When I can bring a farmer with me and that farmer can actually talk about the real life implications of the decisions that they're having, suddenly that really strikes home with elected officials when they get to meet with the constituents that they're legislating on the behalf of. And so I'd strongly encourage it, whether it be through us or just through other means, to always get to know your elected officials. It might not always seem like it, but most of the time you are breaking through and being remembered.